Hello, my name's Naden, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 88, and I'll be talking to Liam Naden, a speaker, teacher, writer, and researcher who helps you understand the process of creating true success in your life by understanding how to use your brain the right way, overcoming your problems, achieving your goals, and ending frustrations. He is the host of the podcast, Using Your Brain for Success, and a creator of Neuro-State Rebalancing, NSR, a process which automatically gets the 4 parts of your brain working the right way to bring you the life you want. Liam is also an experienced marriage and relationship coach, host of Glowing in Love of Life podcast, author of more than 20 books, and a creator of 4 relationship coaching programs. Hello and welcome to Liam. How are you, Liam?
Hi, Narenjan. I'm very well, thank you. Great to be here on your show.
I am excited to have you on my show and really delve into this conversation about how you support individuals in really optimizing their life so they can live it for the best parts that it has to offer, rather than being engrossed and ingrained in the not so good parts, which seems to be the majority of what the world is living these days, but also choose to navigate life too. So do you care to just share a little bit about the background, just to give our audience a little bit more context in terms of the work that you do and how you have personally gone through in living your optimal life so far?
Okay, well, I'm a speaker, teacher, writer, and researcher, really in the whole area of how do we get the results we do in our life, both good and bad. And it's really something that's consumed me as an interest pretty well all my life. And I've always been someone who's tried to seek out, how can I be the best that I can be? How can I be really happy and successful in all of those things? But something happened in my mid-40s, which sort of put a bit of a spanner in the works in one way, in that I went from being pretty successful. I was a multi-millionaire. I had multiple homes, multiple businesses. I was doing really well on the outside. I went from that to becoming homeless, losing everything. And literally I had to move in and back into my elderly mother's apartment and sleep on the sofa in her living room. So what that experience taught me was, or what I learned from that is, we've really got this whole idea of how we get the results we do in our life completely around the wrong way. And I'd got it round the wrong way before that experience. And having it round the wrong way was chasing after success, trying to achieve more, having this idea that I just always had to find another way, set bigger goals, struggle harder, overcome problems, have lots of stress. That was the way I was taught and believed, that that's what success, or that's what your life had to look like. If you wanted to be successful, you had to have lots of problems and stress, and you had to continually set more and more bigger challenges for yourself and overcome whatever problems that you had. Now, after I lost everything, when I started to rebuild my life, I discovered that that's not actually the way we're designed to live at all, because when things started to happen again for me and I started to set up new businesses again and started to earn money and really started to do things that I really enjoyed doing, what I noticed was the difference was I didn't have any problems and stress. And whereas before I'd been chasing after this thing called success, as I say, always wanting more and trying to figure out what to do. And is there another book I need to read? Is there another course I need to take? Is there another idea I need to get? always, is there another opportunity I need to grab? And going from that to success feeling like it was coming to me. And what I mean by that was I'd get new, this is after, you know, I lost everything. I'd start to get new ideas about what to do that turned out to be really good ideas and that really worked. Or people would show up in my life who maybe I hadn't seen for a long time or had never met before, and they would have an idea or an opportunity of something that I would run with, and that worked as well. So everything seemed to be going a lot more easily. It was like these opportunities, these ideas, these right decisions, these right things were all coming to me. And I just, and the big difference, the other big difference was I didn't really have any problems or stress. I wasn't waking up worried about opening my inbox and, oh, you know, get more unexpected problems coming along that I have to deal with. So I wanted to figure this out, what I was doing differently, because I was obviously doing something differently because I was getting completely different results. I was actually finally, and this still continues to this day, actually, I was feeling happy. I was finally feeling I was in control of my life. I was doing things that really gave me joy and pleasure, and I wasn't spending time fighting fires, dealing with problems. It went from from a stress-filled life and a struggle-filled life to a joyful, effort-filled life.
So what do you feel are some of the key attributes that you have learned having your life unfold in a place of push, resistance, and pushing against the wind, right? So let's say the majority of the world, to now in being in more flow of life, what do you feel are some of the attributes that you now exhibit, showcase, and support others on their journey?
Well, the key thing is understanding how your brain works, which I didn't before. Because again, like a car, when you know how your brain works, when you know how it's designed to work, the thing that disappears from your life is stress and worry. Because can you imagine if you were in a car trying to drive it and you didn't know how to drive it, you'd be getting out every 5 seconds to check that it was still going, or am I doing it right? Or, you know, and worrying about everything and trying to figure stuff out. But if you knew how to drive it, you can just sit in there and enjoy the ride. You do a few things that are right, and you can actually do what we're here for, which is to have an experience which is a pleasurable adventure, not a struggle.
Absolutely. That's right.
So the big difference is giving up resistance, because resistance is a completely unnatural force of nature as well. You know, if you think about it, if you ride a bicycle, when are you going to go faster? When you're riding into the wind, or when the wind is with you? You're going to go a lot faster when there's no resistance.
Yes.
So, and it turns out this is how your brain works as well. Your brain, remember, it's biological. This is not some airy-fairy idea. This is how it's scientifically and biologically wired to work in harmony with the rest of nature, where there is no resistance, but you use the power of your brain in the right way so that you don't create resistance. And what I've created is a model of the brain which shows there are actually 4 parts that have separate physical locations. They all carry out separate functions. And it's the using of those 4 parts that most people get wrong that create the resistance and create the problems as a result of the resistance.
So knowing what you know now, what is your calling?
To be here in this moment, allowing my brain to, which is the vehicle to express the best of me. That's all we're here for. And it only happens in this moment and in every moment. It's not going to happen in five years when I've achieved all the goals on my goals list. So it's to understand and know, you know, I don't actually make any plans or goals for the future, because why would you, when there's a part of your brain that when it's operating the right way, when it's allowed to be in charge, it knows what you want. It knows when you should have it. It knows what you don't want. And it also knows how to get it for you. That's its job. You're here to be the best that you can be, and your brain is that machine designed to ensure that happens. So how I feel that I live my life is just to be along for the ride, if you like. Allow my brain to do its job to make me the best that I can be. That's my purpose. That's everyone's purpose.
What are your intentions other than sharing this with the world as you go through speaking engagements and teach others these beautiful ahas and insights that not only you've learned, but also lived through for a good chunk of your life, and that's how you live today, is be in flow with the natural current of the universal laws, is what I'm hearing. What is the intention with it in terms of sharing it with others beyond that? Is there something deeper within you that's triggering you to do all these other things?
Maybe we'll get a time to share how the model of how your brain actually works, and I think that will listeners will understand the right way to live, if you like, because the wrong way to live that causes all the problems, the wrong is using different parts of your brain where you're trying to figure stuff out, you're trying to work things out. But you know, it says in the Bible, give no thought for tomorrow will take care of itself. And it doesn't say that as a fancy idea and just believe and have faith. That's because that's how your brain works. Your brain is designed to give you everything you need in every moment so that you're the best that you can be. And when you understand that, you don't need to try and it's not the thinking part of your brain, by the way, that does that.
Right.
It's a part I call the creative brain.
That's right.
It's one of the four, these are two of the four parts of the brain. So it's a lot less of a resistance way to live your life, is just to say, I'm enjoying this moment. I wonder what's going to show up in the next moment. Because the minute you commit yourself, limit yourself to what you think you're going to do, that's all it is limiting yourself. You know, I'm doing things now I wouldn't have dreamt I was doing a year, 2, 5 years ago. Why would I have limited myself? I interviewed a man recently for my own podcast who was enormously successful in the 1990s. He had a huge company. He had 1 million customers. He taught seminars on financial trading, and he had 500 staff and 2 private jets. And he said to me, Liam, and he's very much in alignment with my philosophy. He teaches it in a slightly different way. I teach it more in how your brain works way. This is more a philosophical way. But as he said, I could never have written that on a goals list. Goals lists are self-sabotage. And there's been increasingly numbers of people writing about this as well, that goals, apart from the fact that we better not get onto goal setting. I've talked for hours about that, but most of the goals, you know, what's the success rate of setting goals? Is it 90%? You know, if people do ask themselves that question, if they write goals down, what percentage do you achieve? 90%, 95%, 85%? It's more like 3% is the official statistic. So if only 3%, if you only achieve 3% of something, why are you doing it? Wouldn't you say goal setting doesn't work? It's like going to a heart surgeon and saying, what's your success rate on heart operations? If he said 3%, you'd say, forget that. Whatever you're doing doesn't work. So we have this false idea that we need to keep pursuing this idea, which all comes from using the wrong part of our brain to figure this out, that we need to keep setting goals, and we need to, but it doesn't work. I used to do all that. It didn't work. It wasn't on my goals list to lose everything for a start.
But how is that? I hear you loud and clear that a lot of the tactical solutions that have been presented to us is often positioned from a place of lack, from a place of something's not right. So how do we make it right? Because it's wrong. Be it through the educational system, the world that we live in, the stories that we hear, probably the shows and the movies and everything, our entire world is very much driven to be visualized from a resistance and a negative kind of perspective, if you will. So how did that play in for you? And yes, and I recognize it can be looked at as a positive light, but the conditioning of us human beings is very much, I believe, on the opposite side of not allowing the universal laws to take place, not being relaxed in allowing those creative ideas and answers to come through, of feeling inferior when you don't have goals and you don't have big ambition, or you are ostracized for whatever reason. And that not only goes in the business world, but it goes in the health space, the family space, and how individuals are
viewed upon in what life should look like. How would one navigate that, even though we're so bombarded with all of this?
Well, what we all need to realize is that everything that you experience in your life is purely the result of your perception and your awareness and the way you look at things.
Yeah.
So two people can look at exactly the same situation. One can see it, and they will see it in completely different ways, and in exactly the same situation. So
Yeah.
there is nothing about what's out there that is actually real. It's all about your perception. It's all about what you think it means. And
Yeah.
you can think it means something positive, or you can think it means something negative, but it's purely based on what your brain is telling you. That's it. So from that, it's perfectly logical to understand that everything that you see as being negative in the world is not because it's actually negative. It's not because it's actually there. It's because that's what your brain is showing you. That's the perception. And if you use your brain differently, in other words, the way it's designed to be used, because all that negativity, is that helping you survive? Is that helping you be the best that you can be? Of course it isn't. So your brain is doing something wrong, because it's bringing you a perception where you see everything as negative. And you might say, well, it is negative. No, it's not. It's only your perception.
Yes.
All quantum physics, all spirituality, all of these traditions will tell you it's all your perception. There's nothing out there. It's all the way you perceive things.
Absolutely.
And we've been given this magnificent machine called our brain to give us the right perception to enable us to be the best that we can be, to live the greatest life possible. So if you're not seeing that, and if your brain is not allowing you to see that, it's because you're using it the wrong way. And maybe I could explain the 4 parts of the brain, because I think that will really, clarify how we're using our brain the wrong way on a biological level, and why our perception is wrong. And that there's some benefit in that, but we're doing it the wrong way, and 98% of people are. And funnily enough, this model of how to use your brain is taught in the Bible, is taught in most religious and spiritual traditions, but we've never seen it that way, partly because we're using our brain the wrong way, and our brain can't let us see the truth. So would that be useful if I just give you a quick rundown, your listeners a rundown on the 4 parts of your brain, how it works, and I think people will see what they're doing wrong, which is creating the wrong perception. The perception that life is hard, life is a struggle, life is dangerous, life is and you're fragile. None of those things are true. But it's the perception you're given, by your brain is giving you, because it's not your brain's fault. You're just using it the wrong way. It's just like you'd say a car running badly is, well, there's something wrong with the car. It's just that, and it's the way it is.
It's the individual in itself. But I want to take that a step further in terms of, and it may cover some of the components, the 4 parts, the science, the religion, psychology, and philosophy, which I believe are the 4 main components. Is the intention and bringing in the spiritual realm, because that's the realm that I kind of delve in and work in and around in conjunction with everything else. And it's allowing that unseen part of the physical aspect of who we are be in flow of our lives, of our thoughts and our doings.
But how can you do that? You can only do that when you use the machine the right way.
Absolutely.
So what I'm talking about is a biological machine, but I think if I explain it, it will become clear, because what I found was a lot of the theoretical ideas, that's all great, and it is true, but it's a bit like it's too much based on belief. Sounds a good idea, but how do you do it in practice? Whereas when you understand biologically how you're made up, and you actually do operate your life physically and biologically, you open up all of the right channels, your spiritual nature, your awareness, all of these things, your greater intelligence, that's excuse me, that's where you operate from. But you need to get the machine working right first. You can't do it from the wrong place. But anyway, there's basically 4 parts of your brain, and these are all separate physical locations. They all have technical words and names, but you don't need to know any of that. You just need to know what they do. The first part is the thinking brain, and the thinking brain's at the top of the head, and it occupies quite a large area of our brain. What the thinking brain's job is to do is to be a library, a database of all of your knowledge that you accumulate in your life. So in every moment, it's taking in through your 5 senses what you hear, smell, taste, touch, and see, ideas and thoughts, and it's taking all of that in and storing it in this part of your brain, basically to collect all the information you pick up in your life.
Right.
That's its purpose. And that allows you to do things like communicate with others, identify things, you know, you can see the difference between a tree and a horse or whatever. All of those things. This is information. The second part of your brain is your emotional brain. And it's also what I call the feeling brain. And this is this is located just below the thinking brain. It's pretty obvious what this does. This manages your emotions. It determines how you feel. And you can feel everything from love and gratitude and all of those positive emotions to stress, fear, and worry, all managed by your emotional brain. The third part of the brain is what I call the survival brain. That's at the back of the head. And the job of this part of your brain is to manage everything about your moment by moment survival, to keep you alive. So it manages all of your bodily functions, your breathing, your heart rate, all those things. Things you don't have to think about. There's one other really important part of your survival that is managed by this part of your brain, and that is very, very occasionally in your life, remember your purpose is to be the best that you can be, which means feeling great, everything's going well, you don't have problems, you don't have stress, you're feeling wonderful, loving, all of those things, being the best that you can be. That's what your brain is striving to make sure that you are in the state of. But there's only one time when that's not appropriate, and that is every now and then something might come unexpectedly into your environment that might be a threat to you, to your survival. Could be something that could hurt you physically or even kill you. And if you go back to prehistoric times, which of course was when the brain was designed for those periods, there was a lot of danger. And you'd be walking through the forest and a lion would jump out from behind the rock. Now, what happens in your brain is your emotional brain, I teach this in a lot more detail, but this is a really short version. Your emotional brain recognizes as a threat to your survival, and it sends a signal in the form of chemicals which create fear. And that fear activates something called your sympathetic nervous system, and it switches your brain from this loving, creative, being the best that you can be, making right decisions, doing all the good stuff, to saying there's a danger here. It activates something in your survival brain, which becomes what we sometimes call the fight, flight, freeze mechanism. So what the brain is saying to you, you've got a threat, stop what you're doing, stop being good, get all of that energy and get rid of this immediate threat. So it's going to make you react. You're going to run away. You're going to shout for help. You're going to stand and fight, whatever it is. And it takes away all of the resources from everywhere else to make sure that you deal with this threat to your survival. And then what happens, of course, you get rid of it, you run away or you shout, whatever you do. And then you're creative. Then you activate the part of your brain again where you're feeling good. Your brain says, you're in the clear, go back to feeling good, living your life purpose, being the best that you can be.
Yes.
So that's all good. So, but the fourth part of the brain, which I've alluded to, is what I call your creative brain. And science has more recently discovered that these are separate areas of your brain that actually carry out this function. Now, it's not your thinking, and it's not what you feel, but it's where you get intuition from. It's where your creativity, your imagination, all of these things come from, your higher awareness, where you can see the truth, where you can see the right thing to do. This is where you make the right decisions from, and where you don't make the wrong decisions from. All of these things are managed by your creative brain. It's where you get those gut feelings. Oh, I should do that, or I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't talk to that person, or I should talk to that person, or that doesn't feel right. We've all had these experiences. Now, this part of your brain also, remember, this is the way you're supposed to live. Your creative brain is the one that's supposed to run your life.
That's right.
And it also brings to you things that on a low level of awareness, without using your creative brain, you would say it's luck, it's coincidence, it's synchronicity. How did that happen? Oh, it must be a fluke. There's nothing random in this natural world. It couldn't be, otherwise it would be chaos. It couldn't exist. Things couldn't be the best they could be if it was chaos. So that's the way you're supposed to live. But there's only one time when you're not supposed to live like that, and that's when the lion comes running at you. Because what happens when you feel fear, stress, worry, anxiety, these are all aspects of an underlying fear. When you feel fear, what your brain is literally doing, it's blocking off your creative brain and it's locking you into a reactive state managed by your survival brain. What that does is it shuts down all of your awareness and gets you to focus only on what is negative in your environment. This is essential to your survival. If there's a lion coming, you want to know where it is, how big it is. Is there any more? Is there more than one lion? That noise in the grass, is that a snake? Is that a danger as well? So your brain is locked into a very low, very immediate awareness of your immediate environment, and it's all very negative. And that's all your brain allows you to see. So what's the big problem? People are trying to organize their life. They're trying to do everything. They're trying to set goals. They're trying to figure out what they should do. They're trying to be motivated. They're trying to make the right decisions. They're trying to do all of these things. They're trying to put all this effort in. They're using the part of their brain that's not designed to do that. All of that stuff is in their creative brain. All of the stuff about the solutions to any problems you might have stop you creating problems in the first place, which is what I used to do and what most people do. A lot of the problems we are self-inflicted, aren't they? Through bad decisions. Meeting the wrong people, doing all those things. That's not going to happen when you're using your creative brain. And this science has a word for this state. It's called homeostasis, which means the optimal functioning of the organism. That's the way every organism lives, being its best, when everything is going really well. We sometimes call this in the flow or in the zone. But here's the thing. The minute you feel any fear, stress, worry, anxiety, you block off that part of your brain. It's as simple as that. And that's how you're using the machine the wrong way. And 98% of people aren't getting the results they want because they're using the wrong part of their brain to try and get it. And they don't realize that the activator is fear. Fear, it's like putting the wrong fuel into your car. It's just not going to work. You could have all the motivation, all of the determination, positive thinking, saying the right things, telling yourself you're reprogramming your mind. But if you feel fear, you're putting the wrong fuel in. You're unable to access this. So the real trick, the answer, and it's the answer to a question of how do you get in the flow, you have to realize that fear is your enemy. Fear limits your awareness and it shuts down your creative brain. Because remember, the purpose of fear is to deal with an immediate threat to your survival. And your brain is that part of your brain is going to draw all of the energy it can from everywhere else to give you as much energy as you need to be able to deal with that. So it's going to shut down your creative brain. It's going to stop that. That part of your brain is of no use to you when a lion is about to eat your leg off. So people don't realize this. They don't realize that it's pure, anything that makes them feel bad is activating the wrong part of their brain. And what's the solution? You've got to decide that you're not going to allow things that make you feel bad into your life. And people think, well, I'm in this terrible situation. I've got all these problems. You have the choice. Do you turn off that news program that's making you feel bad? Do you stop that conversation with somebody? Do you stop that's making you feel bad? Do you change the subject or walk away? Do you stop talking to that person altogether who makes you feel bad? Do you stop coming up with excuses about why your life is the way it is? Do you stop because this is the poison. You've really got to realize that when you do this and you allow your creative brain to do its job, your life is going to be the way you finally want it. You're finally going to see what you should do. You're going to be given the right opportunities. You're going to make the right decisions. The right people are going to show up in your life. And it's all going to happen not in a struggle where you're trying to figure it all out and force it to happen. This part of your brain is far more powerful than you are or than you think you are, because you're trying to use your thinking brain. That's what your thinking brain's not designed to figure this stuff out either. It doesn't know the answer. It only knows what you've experienced. So this is the core message. You've got to find a way, and this is what I spend my time, not only for myself, but helping others to realize that fear is the enemy. And where's another clue that we're told how to do this? The Bible. The Bible is a fantastic manual on how to use your brain, because it says in there more than 360 times, be not afraid. Those three words, be not afraid. Now, it doesn't say try not to be as afraid. We know you live in a dangerous world, and just try and, it says be not afraid. It's like sitting in your car and saying, release the handbrake, turn on. This is an instruction. because it's telling you that when you are afraid, you're activating the wrong part of your brain. It's not the part of your brain designed to solve problems. It's only there for the odd emergency when the lion rushes at you.
So to bring it into context, and thank you for sharing the detailed explanation of your perspective of this. What I'm hearing is how one can balance all these beautiful parts of who we are, but really coming in a space of empowerment. And I know that's been such an overused word, but empowerment of, am I going to let the fight or flight part of me really take over? Or am I going to allow me to be a little bit more still and allow that creative message to come through, that intuitive sense? What am I choosing to do? Which you alluded to this in terms of making a choice. My language for that would be free will. An individual has free will. Granted, you reference the Bible from a religious standpoint, but from an energetic standpoint, it's a universal law. It's from a scientific perspective, it's free will, my version. Because I look at it from a spiritual perspective rather than a religion. So we're saying the same thing, we're just using different language and how we're our perspective on that language. So I see it as how one can truly take back their power in, how do I want to use this? How do I want to use this experience to fuel me to be better? Not to say we're not better, but to maybe enjoy this experience more, or to witness something that I haven't witnessed before. Like this conversation, it's very new, it's very fresh. So and I equate that to your choice and free will.
Absolutely, and I only use the religious analogy because many people can relate to that. I was brought up a Christian, but I'm not coming from a religious perspective. But I think, like anything, when you understand, you don't need to have faith. You don't need to try and believe something. You just know that's the way it works.
Yes.
And most of our life, we operate just knowing things work. We're not worried about whether our heart's going to beat the next minute, or whether we're going to breathe, or whether the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Or when we're driving down a road, we're not worried that the cars coming towards us are not going to stay on their side of the road and we stay on our side of the road. But we understand that this is the way things work. So when you understand how your brain works, and that fear is the divider is the part that stops you being your true self, then you just know that's how it works. You don't question it, and you don't need to work on anything when you realize your brain is infinitely powerful and bring you everything that you want and everything that you need to be the unique version of you. You don't need to try and figure anything out. Your brain already knows that. All you need to do is manage your emotional state so that you're using the machine the right way.
Yes.
And so it's not a question of faith, it's just a question of understanding. And then that's what your life becomes, is managing your perspective and saying, well, if it makes me feel bad, it's activating, it doesn't matter what it is, it's activating the wrong part of my brain. And the great thing about losing everything, which is what I did, I got rid of all the negative stuff at once. And then I could start again and say, well, who do I want in my life? What do I want to be able want to do? And just let it, and because I wasn't attached to it, because I had nothing, and I thought, well, anything is better than nothing, whatever it is, I could allow it to show up. And the more I did that, the more I realized this creative part of my brain, which was designed to give me everything that I was to make me the best version of myself, it was going to do that. It's what it's designed to do. It's the way everything is set up. So all you need to do is manage your perspective and say, if it makes me feel bad, I need to stop. I need to say, why is it making me feel bad, and eliminate whatever it is. And, on little things, my partner and I just recently, for instance, we travel around, as I said to you before we recorded, and we looked up online, there was this really nice restaurant. We thought, we'll go and try it. We went in there and we sat down and we thought, and we say this to each other all the time, it doesn't feel right, does it? Something about the energy here. And we didn't have to figure it out. We didn't make a list of all the positives and justify it. We just didn't feel right. So we thought, no, we're not going to stay, we'll go somewhere else. So we just stood up and went out, just knowing that the right thing would show up. And across the road was a restaurant we never heard of, which was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's all you need to do. You don't need to manage, you don't need to worry about what you're thinking, or should I say, try and change anything. You just need to manage your emotional state and say, if something's making me feel bad, that's the wrong fuel going in. What I've got to, and that takes a little bit of courage to start with, and that's why people stay stuck in negative situations, because they're afraid. Don't understand that they have a creative part of their brain that will make everything perfect for them. So they stay in the wrong job or the wrong relationship, and they try and fix things and justify it and say, I'll make this work, and everyone knows that it's hard and you have to overcome problems, because they're afraid that if they just give it up, they don't know what to do on the other side. But you don't need to know what to do, because your creative brain does. It'll bring you the right people, it'll bring you the right ideas, the right situations, but you have to allow it to do that. And that doesn't come from faith, that comes from understanding that this is how you work.
I want to rephrase that a little bit. I want to add a different word into, rather than understanding, I want to use inner standing. So we are using our internal beingness of who we are and going inwards to create a balance, so we can then digest the information of, okay, am I going to go left or am I go right, on the inwards rather than the external, which gives the connotation I'm beneath somebody else.
It's all an inner game. Life is an
Absolutely.
inner game. And most people are doing it the other way around. They're trying to fix everything outside of them so that they feel good inside.
Right.
And they don't realize that the trick, the way you're designed biologically, and I keep coming back to this biological thing because it impacts on every other aspect of your life, but it's a fundamental law. It's like walking out a 10-story building, you're going to fall down. You're not going to go up. It's as fundamental and basic as that.
Yeah.
But when you fix what's on the inside, when you manage your emotional state so that you're activating your creative brain rather than your survival brain, everything on the outside is going to take care of itself. And it's going to show up in the most unexpected. I mean, I can't think of how many things keep showing up and have shown up in my life that just completely never thought that would happen. So you get to the point of just saying, you realize that's how it works. Why would you try and figure stuff out when your brain already knows the answer?
Allowing that other opportunity to show up and go, okay, yeah, maybe I will entertain that. Maybe we will go to another restaurant, rather than, oh my gosh, it doesn't feel right. So does that mean we're not going to be able to eat anything? Like, okay, no, let's just see, and let's see what will show up. But you were open enough to listen and allow that message to come through, which I think is the important piece. So,
well, it only comes from understanding how it works. You know, it really isn't any more complicated than that. You don't need to work on, because when you're trying to think the right things, or even just trying to allow something, it's all about trying. It's not natural.
That's right.
So there's an underlying fear there. You're thinking, well, I've got to try and do this so that I can improve my life, or that I can change something. But when you realize nothing needs changing, you are perfect. And then you're not, in other words, you're not attached to any outcome of what might happen, but just knowing the right thing will always happen, then it always will. And sometimes things go completely unexpectedly. And on one level, you might say, I made a mistake. But when your awareness is raised and you're operating in this place, you realize there are no mistakes. It's only your perspective that you think. A mistake is something that gives you an outcome that you weren't expecting and that you don't think you want. But it's perfect all the time.
But the natural laws of the universe will always present you with something far greater than you can mentally fathom, if we allow that to happen. So
that's using your creative brain rather than your thinking brain.
Right. So we're allowing those solutions to come through in a creative way, in a way that's more inflow rather than pushing for it. What a delicious conversation, and what an in-depth one. Liam, I feel like I could talk to you for at least another hour and just really delve into some of not only your own stories, but your own experiences, but how you go about influencing others and sharing what your insights and what your gift is of experiencing this in your own life with others. So we will definitely put the website and details on how people can contact you in the show notes. And thank you so much, Liam, for your time, energy, and your wisdom sharing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the connection. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.